The sun was just rising over the city of New York when Amara Williams arrived at the airport. She was dressed neatly in a light blue dress and a soft gray scarf. Her luggage, a sleek black suitcase, rolled quietly beside her as she walked through the busy terminal. She had an important meeting to attend in Los Angeles, and she had planned every detail of her trip carefully. Amara always liked to be organized. As she approached the boarding gate, she noticed people moving quickly, some with coffee in their hands, others checking their phones. The air smelled faintly of pastries and jet fuel, a mix she had grown used to over the years. Amara smiled softly to herself. She had flown many times before, but she always felt a small thrill when a new journey began. She showed her boarding pass to the attendant and stepped onto the plane. The cabin was calm, the hum of the engines filling the space with a quiet rhythm. Amara found her seat by the window, settled her bag in the overhead compartment, and adjusted her seatbelt. She looked around, noticing the few other passengers who were settling in. Some were reading, some talking softly, and others resting with their eyes closed. Soon a flight attendant appeared, moving quickly down the aisle. She wore a crisp uniform with a bright red scarf tied neatly at her neck. Her hair was pulled back tightly and her smile looked practiced. She stopped at Amara's row and greeted her politely. "Good morning, ma'am. Can I get you something to drink?" the flight attendant asked. Amara smiled and replied, "Orange juice, please." The flight attendant nodded and moved on, picking up a small tray with drinks. She poured the juice carefully into a cup, but as she reached Amara, she stumbled slightly. The juice spilled, and before Amara could react, a small amount landed on her dress. Amara froze for a moment, feeling the cold liquid soaking into the fabric. She quickly took a napkin from her bag and dabbed at the stain. "It's okay," she said calmly, not wanting to make a scene. The flight attendant looked embarrassed, her cheeks turning pink. "I am so sorry, ma'am," she said. "I will get you another drink and help you clean this." Amara shook her head gently. "It's fine. Accidents happen." Despite her calm words, the passengers nearby noticed the incident. Some whispered to each other, casting curious glances at Amara and the attendant. The air felt slightly tense, though Amara remained composed. She had learned long ago that staying calm was always the best response in difficult situations. Once the juice was cleaned up, Amara turned her attention to the window. Outside, the runway stretched far and wide, with airplanes lined up like giant birds waiting for their turn to fly. The city looked peaceful from above, the buildings catching the first light of the day. She breathed deeply, trying to relax. A few minutes later, the flight attendant returned with a new drink. This time, she was extra careful, handing the cup to Amara with a sincere apology. "Thank you," Amara said with a smile. "I appreciate it." The attendant nodded and moved on, helping other passengers with their requests. Amara sipped her juice and looked around the cabin again. She noticed a man sitting a few rows ahead, typing quickly on his laptop. Another passenger, a woman with a young child, was quietly reading a storybook. The plane felt ordinary, yet Amara could not shake the small tension that lingered after the earlier accident. Amara's husband, Malik Williams, was traveling separately. He was on a different flight, but they had planned to meet in Los Angeles later that day. Malik was a successful businessman, known for his focus and decisiveness. He often said that the world moved quickly, and those who waited too long would be left behind. Amara admired him for that, though she also knew that his power could be both a blessing and a challenge. As the plane began to taxi toward the runway, Amara closed her eyes for a moment. She imagined the city shrinking beneath her, the buildings becoming tiny shapes, the streets winding like threads. She liked the feeling of leaving one place behind and moving toward something new. She felt a small thrill in her chest, a reminder that life was full of unexpected moments. The engines roared louder and the plane lifted into the sky. Amara held her drink carefully, watching the ground fall away beneath her. She noticed the way the sunlight hit the clouds, turning them into soft pillows of gold and white. She thought about her meeting in Los Angeles, the plans she had made, and the important decisions that awaited her. For a moment, everything seemed peaceful. Then she felt a small tap on her shoulder. She looked up and saw the flight attendant again, holding a small packet of wipes. "Ma'am, I brought these in case you need to clean your dress further," she said. Amara took the packet with a gentle smile. "Thank you," she replied. "You've been very kind." The attendant hesitated, then said softly, I just want to make sure everything is okay. I didn't mean for the accident to happen, Amara nodded. I know, don't worry about it. It's not your fault. The flight attendant smiled faintly and walked away. Amara leaned back in her seat, thinking about the small exchange. She appreciated the effort, but she could feel a small unease lingering in her mind. She did not like feeling singled out or treated differently even by mistake. She decided to focus on the journey ahead instead. Hours passed as the plane flew steadily over the country. Amara read a book she had brought with her, occasionally looking out the window to watch the changing landscape. Mountains rose in the distance, rivers curved through valleys, and the sun climbed higher in the sky. She felt calm, but she could not ignore the small tension from earlier. Finally, the captain announced that they would begin their descent into Los Angeles. Amara looked out the window as the city appeared below, a mix of buildings, roads, and parks stretching toward the horizon. She felt a mix of excitement and anticipation. The day ahead would be busy, but she was ready to face it. As the plane touched down smoothly on the runway, Amara took a deep breath. She unbuckled her seatbelt and gathered her things. She noticed the flight attendant approaching one last time. "Ma'am, I hope the rest of your journey is pleasant," the attendant said. Amara smiled warmly. "Thank you. It will be." She walked down the aisle, her steps steady and confident. Other passengers were moving around, collecting their bags and preparing to leave the plane. Amara felt a sense of relief. The flight was over, and she had handled the situation with grace. Outside the plane, the sun was high, casting a bright light over the airport. Amara rolled her suitcase toward the terminal, thinking about the meeting she had in a few hours. She did not know that the small incident with the juice would soon lead to unexpected consequences. She did not know that her husband, Malik, would hear about what happened and take action that no one could have predicted. For now, she focused on walking calmly through the airport, her mind clear, her steps measured, and her heart ready for whatever the day might bring. She knew that life often surprised people in the most unexpected ways. Today would be one of those days. Amara wheeled her suitcase through the wide terminal, the sound of the wheels echoing softly on the polished floor. She moved with a calm, steady pace, but inside, a small thought lingered. The incident on the plane, though minor, had left her feeling unsettled. She tried to shake it off, focusing instead on the task ahead. Her meeting in Los Angeles was important, and she did not want anything to distract her. As she stepped out of the terminal into the bright sunlight, her phone buzzed in her hand. It was a message from Malik. She smiled, knowing he had already landed and was waiting at the hotel. Malik's messages were usually short and direct, but they carried a warmth she had learned to recognize over the years. "Hope you had a smooth flight. See you soon." Amara typed back quickly, letting him know she was on her way. She had taken a private car from the airport to the hotel, preferring comfort and quiet after her long flight. The driver greeted her politely and helped with her suitcase, guiding her to a black sedan parked just outside. The car moved smoothly through the city, and Amara watched the streets pass by. The city looked busy, alive with people moving quickly to their destinations. She noticed children walking with their parents, business people hurrying past, and tourists taking photos of the tall buildings. It reminded her that life never stopped, that each day carried its own stories, challenges, and surprises. At the hotel, Malik was waiting in the lobby. He stood near the entrance, tall and composed, dressed in a crisp suit that matched his professional reputation. When he saw Amara, his face lit up with a smile that softened his otherwise serious expression. "Amara," he said warmly as he walked toward her. He took her hand gently. "How was the flight?" "It was fine," Amara replied, smiling back. "There was a small accident with a drink, but it's nothing serious." Malik raised his eyebrows, his expression becoming more focused. "A drink?" he asked. Amara nodded. "The juice spilled on my dress," the flight attendant apologized. "I managed it calmly." Malik's eyes narrowed slightly, though his voice remained calm. "Do you want to tell me more?" Amara explained the incident in a few words, keeping the tone matter-of-fact. Malik listened carefully, his attention focused entirely on her. He did not interrupt, though she could sense his growing concern. When she finished, Malik took a deep breath. "Thank you for handling it so well. he said. "But I think we should address this properly. No one should be treated carelessly, especially when it could have been avoided." Amara nodded, appreciating his protective instinct but also feeling confident in her own composure. "I am fine, Malik. It was an accident. I don't want to make it more than it is." He smiled gently. "I know. But sometimes, small moments can reveal larger problems. I just want to make sure everything is fair." Later that afternoon, Amara prepared for her meeting. She dressed in a neat suit and went over her notes one last time. The room was quiet, the soft hum of the air conditioner blending with the ticking of a small wall clock. Amara felt a mixture of focus and anticipation. She had a reputation for being professional, calm, and precise, and she intended to maintain it. Meanwhile, Malik could not stop thinking about the flight. He was a man who noticed details others overlooked. The report he had received about the incident had included exact times, the names of the crew, and the passengers who had witnessed it. Something about the carelessness disturbed him. He believed that respect and courtesy were essential in every environment, including on airplanes. Without delay, Malik made a call to the airline's corporate office. His tone was calm but firm, the kind of tone that commanded attention without raising alarm. He asked to speak with the senior operations manager and explained in clear terms what had happened. "The incident was not just about a spilled drink," Malik said. "It was about respect, responsibility, and the way your team treats passengers. I want a full investigation, and I expect appropriate action to follow." The manager on the other end listened carefully. Malik's influence was well known, and his words carried weight. Within minutes, arrangements were made for a review of the flight, the crew, and their conduct. Malik ended the call, feeling a sense of satisfaction that the situation was being addressed seriously. Back at the hotel, Amara completed her meeting successfully. Her clients were impressed with her professionalism and attention to detail. She spoke confidently, answering questions clearly, and offering thoughtful solutions. By the end of the meeting, they were satisfied and ready to proceed with the plans she had presented. As she left the meeting, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Malik. "The airline confirmed they are reviewing the incident. I will handle it from here." Amara smiled softly. She appreciated his support, but she also valued her independence. She had handled the situation herself with composure, and now Malik's involvement would ensure that fairness was maintained. Later that evening, the Williams couple dined at a quiet restaurant near the hotel. The room was softly lit, creating a warm atmosphere. Amara felt the tension of the day easing as they enjoyed their meal. Malik spoke about his work, and Amara shared details of her own day. They laughed lightly, exchanged ideas, and planned the following day's activities. Despite the pleasant evening, both were aware that the incident on the plane had created a ripple that could not be ignored. Malik knew the airline would have to respond, and Amara understood that her dignity had been preserved through calmness and patience. Together, they felt ready to face whatever might come next. The next morning, Malik received a detailed report from the airline. It included statements from passengers, crew members, and flight logs. The report confirmed that the flight attendant had poured juice carelessly and that Amara had been affected. Malik reviewed the document thoroughly. He noted the lack of immediate accountability and the insufficient apology, even though Amara had handled the situation gracefully. He made a decision quickly, as he often did. Malik drafted a formal letter to the airline, outlining the incident, the failure in service, and the expectation for immediate action. The letter was firm but professional, emphasizing the importance of respect for all passengers. By mid-morning, the airline contacted Malik directly. They expressed regret and promised to take swift measures. Malik listened carefully, asking precise questions about what steps would be taken to ensure such incidents did not happen again. His voice carried authority, the kind that made executives take notice and employees understand the seriousness of their responsibilities. Amara watched quietly from the side, proud of Malik's approach. He had handled the situation without anger or drama, focusing instead on fairness and accountability. She admired his clarity, his ability to address problems directly, and his commitment to values she shared herself. By late afternoon, the airline informed Malik that the entire crew involved in the flight had been suspended pending further review. The airline also offered a formal apology to Amara, acknowledging the mistake and expressing commitment to prevent similar incidents in the future. Amara received the official apology personally. She accepted it gracefully, appreciating the gesture. Though she had managed the situation with composure, she knew that Malik's involvement had ensured justice. She also understood the importance of holding people accountable, not through anger, but through clear communication and decisive action. That evening, as they returned to the hotel, Amara reflected on the events of the past day. She thought about how a small accident could lead to larger consequences, how respect and courtesy mattered in every interaction, and how calmness and patience could turn a difficult situation into a story of dignity and fairness. Malik noticed her thoughtful expression and asked, "Are you all right?" "Yes," Amara said with a small smile. "Today taught me something important. Even small moments can show who people really are. I am glad it was handled with care." Malik nodded, taking her hand gently. "I am proud of you. You stayed calm and strong. That is more important than anything else." As they looked out over the city lights, the couple felt a sense of satisfaction. The incident on the plane had been unfortunate, but it had also revealed values, priorities, and the importance of standing up for respect and dignity. Together, they knew they could face any challenge that came their way, with patience, clarity, and courage. The next morning, the airline's headquarters was unusually busy. A group of senior managers gathered in a sleek conference room, the large windows letting in the sunlight. Everyone seemed tense, aware that a serious incident had occurred on one of their flights. Reports had reached the top executives quickly, and the consequences of inaction were clear. The flight attendant who had spilled the juice, named Carla, sat quietly in the corner of the room. She wore a crisp uniform and kept her hands folded on her lap. Her heart raced as she listened to the discussion. She knew the incident had been a mistake, a small accident that had escalated far more than she expected. She had never imagined that a spilled drink could lead to such attention. The operations manager began speaking, his tone firm. "We have received a formal complaint regarding Flight 432. The passenger involved is Amara Williams. She is the wife of Malik Williams, a businessman with significant influence. The report indicates that the flight attendant spilled juice on her, and the handling of the situation was inadequate." Carla swallowed nervously. She had apologized at the time, but she could feel the weight of the report on her shoulders. The manager continued, reviewing statements from other passengers and crew members. According to witnesses, the flight attendant appeared distracted and did not immediately take responsibility. While the passenger handled the situation calmly, our response was insufficient. A senior executive looked at Carla directly. "Do you understand the severity of this situation?" he asked. "This is not just about a spill. It is about professionalism, customer respect, and accountability. We have to consider appropriate actions to ensure it never happens again." Carla nodded slowly, her voice barely audible. "Yes, sir. I understand. I'm very sorry for the mistake." The executives exchanged looks. The airline had a reputation to maintain, and this incident had attracted attention quickly. They had to act decisively. After a brief discussion, a decision was made. The entire crew involved in the flight would be suspended while a full review was conducted. The airline wanted to send a clear message that carelessness and lack of attention would not be tolerated. Carla felt a knot in her stomach. She had worked for the airline for several years and had never faced such a serious consequence. She knew she had made a mistake, but she also believed it was unintentional. The thought of losing her job filled her with anxiety. She wondered how she would explain this to her family and friends. Meanwhile, other members of the crew received similar news. Some were confused, others upset, but all understood that the airline was acting to protect its reputation. The incident with Amara Williams had become more than just a small accident. It had turned into a serious matter requiring immediate attention and correction. Back in Los Angeles, Amara and Malik went about their day, unaware of the internal turmoil the airline now faced. Amara had a series of appointments to attend, and Malik had business meetings scheduled throughout the city. They moved through their day with focus and calm, each aware of the other's presence even when they were apart. Amara received a call from the airline later in the afternoon. The voice on the other end was polite and professional, delivering a formal apology. They expressed regret for the incident and assured her that action had been taken. They also offered a compensation voucher for her next flight, though Amara knew she did not need it. What mattered most was that the airline acknowledged its mistake and acted responsibly. She thanked the representative graciously and shared the news with Malik. He nodded, pleased that the airline had responded appropriately. "I am glad they are taking this seriously," he said. "It is important that respect is always maintained." The following day, Carla and the suspended crew members were called in for individual meetings with the airline's human resources team. Carla's meeting began with a review of the incident. The HR representative spoke carefully but firmly. "We understand that accidents happen," she said. "However, professionalism and attentiveness are critical in this role. Our review has concluded that immediate action must be taken to uphold our standards." Carla felt her hands tremble slightly. She knew what was coming, but hearing it confirmed her fears. "I understand," she whispered. The HR representative continued. "You will remain suspended while we conduct a full investigation. Depending on the outcome, further disciplinary action may follow. This is an opportunity to reflect on your responsibilities and ensure such incidents do not happen again." Carla nodded, tears forming in her eyes. She had always taken pride in her work, and the thought of her career being in jeopardy was overwhelming. She left the office quietly, feeling a mixture of regret, fear, and determination. She knew she would have to work hard to rebuild trust, should she be allowed to return. Elsewhere, the rest of the crew members faced similar meetings. Some expressed frustration, believing the punishment was too harsh, while others accepted it calmly, understanding the importance of accountability. The airline had made it clear that the behavior of the crew reflected not just on themselves, but on the entire organization. Meanwhile, Malik remained in contact with the airline's management. He monitored the situation closely, ensuring that the process was fair and transparent. He was not motivated by anger, but by the principle that every passenger deserved respect, and that mistakes should be addressed responsibly. Back at the hotel, Amara reflected on the series of events. She thought about how a small moment, a spilled drink, had led to significant consequences. She considered the importance of patience, composure, and dignity in every situation. While she had been the subject of the incident, she knew the larger lesson was about accountability and human behavior. Amara also thought about Carla and the crew. She hoped that they would learn from the experience and grow, even though the consequences were severe. Life often tested people in unexpected ways, and she believed that mistakes could lead to improvement if handled wisely. Later that evening, Malik and Amara walked through a quiet park near their hotel. The air was cool, and the soft rustle of leaves created a peaceful atmosphere. They spoke about their day, the meetings, and the lessons they had observed. Malik emphasized the importance of standing up for fairness and dignity, while Amara reflected on the value of patience and composure. As they walked, Amara said softly, "It is strange how a small thing can have such a big effect." Malik nodded. "Yes, life often unfolds in ways we cannot predict. But our response, our integrity, and our values are what define us." Amara smiled, feeling a sense of calm. The incident on the plane had been challenging, but it had also revealed deeper truths about respect, responsibility, and the power of calm action. She knew that both she and Malik had handled it in the best possible way. The next few days saw the airline implementing changes. Training sessions were scheduled for all crew members to reinforce professionalism, attentiveness, and customer respect. Carla and the suspended crew members were required to attend, understanding that their actions had consequences and that improvement was necessary for their future careers. Carla approached the training with humility and determination. She realized that a single mistake, even if unintentional, could have a significant impact. She listened carefully to the instructors, asked questions, and took notes diligently. She understood that accountability and learning were essential steps in regaining trust. Amara, meanwhile, focused on her own work and responsibilities. She remained calm, professional, and thoughtful, knowing that she had handled the situation with grace. She felt confident that the incident, though challenging, had been resolved in a fair and just manner. Malik, observing the developments from the side, felt satisfied. The airline had taken the necessary steps to correct the problem, and accountability had been established. He believed in fairness, responsibility, and respect, and the situation had reinforced the importance of these values in every aspect of life. As the week came to an end, the Williams couple prepared to return home. Amara reflected on the events with a sense of clarity and calm. She had faced an unexpected challenge with dignity, observed the consequences of carelessness, and witnessed the importance of decisive and fair action. Malik, walking beside her, said quietly, "This will be remembered not for the mistake, but for the way it was handled." Amara nodded. "Yes, and it reminds us that respect and accountability matter everywhere in every moment." Together, they boarded the plane for their return flight, feeling a sense of closure. The incident that had begun with a simple spilled drink had grown into a story of learning, responsibility, and fairness. They knew that life would continue to present unexpected challenges, but they also knew that patience, composure, and integrity would guide them through. The morning sun shone brightly over the city as Carla arrived at the airline's training center. She had spent the past few days reflecting on the events of the flight, the suspension, and the lessons she needed to learn. Her steps were careful as she entered the building, the soft click of her shoes echoing through the lobby. Carla felt a mixture of anxiety and determination. She knew the coming session would test her, but she also understood that this was her chance to improve. Inside the training room, the other suspended crew members had gathered. Some were talking quietly, while others sat in silence reviewing notes or looking at their phones. The instructors began the session promptly, emphasizing professionalism, attentiveness, and the importance of customer respect. Every rule, every procedure, every guideline was explained in detail. The tone was serious but instructive. Carla listened carefully, absorbing each point. She realized that small moments mattered more than she had previously believed. Even a minor mistake could have wide-reaching consequences. She thought about Amara, the calm and composed passenger whose dignity had been affected. Carla felt a pang of regret. She wished she could go back and act differently, but she also knew she could not change the past. She could, however, improve her future actions. The instructor presented scenarios that could occur during flights. Each crew member had to respond and demonstrate how they would handle situations professionally. Carla went first. She was asked to serve a passenger with a drink carefully, while remaining aware of potential obstacles. She concentrated fully, pouring the drink slowly, checking for spills, and confirming that the passenger was satisfied. When the instructor nodded approvingly, Carla felt a sense of relief. She realized that attentiveness, patience, and care could prevent accidents and maintain trust. She also understood that her behavior reflected not just on herself, but on the airline as a whole. After the exercises, the training shifted to communication skills. The instructors emphasized the importance of apologizing sincerely, taking responsibility, and resolving situations calmly. Carla practiced responses to hypothetical complaints, learning how to acknowledge mistakes without becoming defensive. She understood that a simple gesture of respect could make a significant difference in how a passenger perceived the airline. Meanwhile, news of the incident continued to circulate quietly among the airline staff. Many employees discussed it with caution, aware that the actions of a few could affect the reputation of the entire organization. Carla overheard whispers about the Williams family, particularly Malik's decisive handling of the situation. Some were impressed, others were nervous. She understood that people were paying attention, that accountability mattered, and that her own behavior had consequences far beyond what she had imagined. Back in Los Angeles, Amara and Malik continued with their daily schedules. Amara attended meetings and presentations with grace and confidence. Malik handled his business responsibilities with efficiency and focus. Throughout the day, they occasionally spoke about the incident on the plane. Malik praised Amara for her composure, while she expressed appreciation for his support. Together, they reflected on how even small actions could lead to significant consequences, and how dignity, respect, and fairness were values worth upholding at all times. In the afternoon, the airline's senior management met again to review the progress of the investigation and the training of the suspended crew members. They discussed Carla's performance in detail, noting her attentiveness during the exercises, her willingness to learn, and her understanding of the importance of customer respect. The executives considered whether she and the other crew members could return to duty, and under what conditions. After careful discussion, the decision was made. Carla and the crew would return to work, but with conditions. They would be monitored for a period of time, required to complete additional training sessions, and expected to demonstrate consistent professionalism. The airline wanted to ensure that the lessons learned were permanent and that all passengers would be treated with respect in the future. Carla received the news with a mixture of relief and determination. She knew she had been given a second chance, and she was determined to make the most of it. She left the training center with a renewed sense of purpose, thinking about how she could apply the lessons she had learned to every interaction, every flight, and every passenger. As the days passed, Carla returned to her duties. She moved with care and attentiveness, making sure every action reflected professionalism and respect. Passengers noticed the change in behavior. She greeted each one politely, served refreshments carefully, and remained attentive to their needs. She realized that a single mistake could shape perceptions, but consistent effort could restore trust. Amara and Malik's lives continued in parallel. They spent time together in the evenings, reflecting on their work, planning for future trips, and enjoying quiet moments away from the demands of business. Amara often thought about Carla and the lessons that had emerged from the incident. She felt that even in moments of discomfort or unfair treatment, patience and dignity could guide one through successfully. One afternoon, Malik received a call from the airline. They wanted to inform him that the crew involved in the incident had completed their training and were returning to duty. The airline expressed gratitude for his understanding and cooperation throughout the process. Malik listened carefully, acknowledging the update, and felt satisfied that fairness and accountability had been upheld. Amara, hearing the update, smiled softly. "It is good to know that they learned from the situation," she said. "Mistakes can be powerful teachers if people are willing to learn." Malik nodded. "Yes, and it is important that fairness and respect are always maintained. That is the lesson for everyone, not just those directly involved." Later that week, Amara and Malik returned home. Their lives continued as usual, but the memory of the incident remained a reminder of the importance of dignity, patience, and accountability. Amara found that she approached interactions with others even more calmly, understanding that small moments could shape larger experiences. Malik maintained his focus on fairness and integrity in all his business dealings, confident that respect and clear communication were the foundations of success. Meanwhile, Carla continued her work with diligence. She shared her experiences with younger crew members, emphasizing the importance of attentiveness and professionalism. She encouraged them to learn from mistakes, but also to act carefully in every situation. Her reputation improved steadily, as passengers noticed her careful service and thoughtful communication. The airline itself implemented new protocols based on the lessons learned from the incident. Crew members received additional training, guidelines were updated, and attention to passenger experience became a stronger priority. The company culture shifted subtly, focusing on responsibility, respect, and proactive behavior. Over time, the story of the flight became known internally as an example of how accountability and professionalism mattered. It was discussed in meetings and training sessions, emphasizing that every passenger deserved respect and that small moments could have wide-reaching consequences. Employees understood that actions had effects beyond what they immediately saw, and that integrity in every task was essential. Amara and Malik reflected on the journey from the airport incident to the resolution. They appreciated how calmness, dignity, and decisive action had led to a fair outcome. Amara thought about the power of patience and composure, while Malik considered the importance of taking responsibility and addressing challenges clearly and professionally. One evening, as they sat together in their home, Malik said quietly, "Life has a way of testing people in unexpected ways. How we respond matters more than what happens." Amara smiled. "Yes, and it reminds us that respect and responsibility are always worth upholding, no matter how small the moment may seem." Together they felt a sense of closure. The incident on the flight, though challenging, had led to learning, growth, and a reaffirmation of values they both believed in deeply. They knew that life would continue to present unexpected moments, but they also knew that patience, integrity, and clear action could guide them through successfully. Carla, now back in her role, moved through the airport with a quiet confidence. She remembered the lessons she had learned, the importance of respect and the need to act carefully in every moment. She felt grateful for the chance to improve, and she was determined to carry those lessons forward in every flight she served. In the end, the incident became more than just a story about a spilled drink. It became a story about patience, dignity, responsibility, and the power of calm, thoughtful action. Every person involved learned something valuable, and the lessons extended beyond the immediate situation, touching lives and reinforcing the importance of fairness and respect in every interaction.
The days after the training had passed quietly for Carla. She returned to her flights with renewed focus, determined to show that she had learned from her mistake.
Each passenger she served received her full attention, and she made a conscious effort to ensure no errors occurred. She noticed that passengers responded positively, appreciating her politeness and careful service. Slowly, her confidence grew. She realized that one incident had changed her perspective on her work and her responsibilities. Back at home, Amara reflected on the past week. The incident on the flight, though minor in appearance, had created a ripple effect that touched many lives. She thought about Carla, the airline, and the lessons learned about respect, professionalism, and accountability. Amara felt proud that she had handled herself with dignity, but she also understood the importance of supporting fairness and responsibility when others failed. Malik, as usual, remained vigilant in his work. He often thought about the power of influence and how it could be used for good. The situation with the airline had reminded him that even small actions mattered, and that people in positions of authority could make a difference by ensuring fairness. He had acted decisively but with care, emphasizing principles rather than punishment. One afternoon, Amara and Malik decided to return to the same airline to personally thank the team for their handling of the incident. They arranged a meeting with the customer service manager and the training department. The meeting was professional and respectful. Malik spoke about accountability and the importance of creating systems that ensured fairness for all passengers. Amara added her perspective, emphasizing the role of composure and dignity in handling mistakes. The airline staff listened attentively. They appreciated the couple taking the time to provide feedback in person. The discussion focused on future improvements, training updates, and ways to prevent similar incidents. Both Malik and Amara left the meeting with a sense of satisfaction, knowing that their involvement had contributed positively to the airline's culture and operations. Meanwhile, Carla had begun mentoring new flight attendants. She shared her experiences openly, speaking about the consequences of inattentiveness and the importance of professionalism. Her colleagues respected her for her honesty and dedication. She emphasized that mistakes were opportunities to learn, not reasons to give up, and that respect and care should guide every action. One evening, Amara received a letter from the airline. It was a formal note of appreciation, acknowledging how she had handled the incident with patience and composure. The airline also highlighted Malik's role in ensuring accountability, noting that the couple's approach had helped reinforce important values throughout the organization. Amara smiled as she read the letter. It was a reminder that calmness, dignity, and thoughtful action could inspire change far beyond a single moment. In the days that followed, life returned to normal for the Williams family. They traveled, worked, and spent time together, but the lessons from the incident remained in their minds. Amara often reflected on how small moments could have large consequences, and how composure, patience, and dignity were powerful tools in any situation. Malik considered the importance of decisive action, fairness, and integrity in both personal and professional life. Carla continued her work on flights, and her reputation grew steadily. Passengers noticed her attentiveness and professionalism. She felt a sense of pride in her growth and the lessons she had learned. The airline had implemented improved training and stricter protocols, and Carla knew she was part of a team committed to high standards and respect for passengers. Months later, Amara received an invitation from the airline to attend a seminar on customer service and professionalism. She agreed, knowing her story could inspire others. At the seminar, she spoke about the importance of patience, dignity, and calm action in challenging situations. She emphasized how handling mistakes gracefully could influence outcomes positively, not only for oneself but for others involved. Malik accompanied her, offering insights from a leadership perspective. He spoke about accountability, fairness, and the importance of responding to challenges with clarity and integrity. The audience listened attentively, learning from their experiences. The seminar reinforced values that went beyond the airline industry and applied to life in general. Carla attended the seminar as well, listening to Amara and Malik speak. She felt grateful for their influence and support. Hearing their perspectives reinforced her commitment to professionalism and respect. She reflected on her own journey, from a simple accident to growth, learning, and renewed purpose. As the weeks turned into months, the story of the incident became part of the airline's training and internal culture. Employees discussed it as an example of how respect, accountability, and careful action could prevent problems and improve passenger experiences. Carla became a mentor, guiding colleagues through the challenges of their work with patience, honesty, and dedication. Amara and Malik continued their lives with the knowledge that even small moments mattered. They shared the story with friends and colleagues, emphasizing the power of calm, thoughtful action and the importance of standing up for fairness without anger or haste. Their experience had become a lesson not just for themselves but for those around them. One quiet evening, Amara and Malik sat on their balcony, watching the city lights twinkle below. Amara reflected on the incident from the flight, the challenges it created and the outcomes that followed. "It is strange," she said softly, "how something so small can teach so much." Malik nodded, taking her hand gently. "Yes, but it also reminds us that respect, dignity, and fairness matter in every situation. How we act even in small moments can influence many lives." Amara smiled. "And patience is just as powerful as action. Remaining calm can guide a situation toward the right outcome." Together they watched the city, feeling a sense of closure and understanding. The incident that began with a spilled drink had grown into a story of growth, learning, and positive change. Everyone involved, Amara, Malik, Carla, and the airline, had learned lessons that would stay with them for a lifetime. Carla, on a different flight that evening, moved through the cabin with care and attention. She greeted passengers with a warm smile and ensured that every detail was handled properly. She remembered Amara's composure, Malik's clarity, and the consequences of her own past mistake. The memory guided her actions, helping her provide the best service possible and restore trust with each interaction. The airline itself had grown stronger. Policies were clearer, training was more thorough, and employees understood that their actions carried real responsibility. Respect for passengers and attentiveness in every task became central values. What had started as a minor incident had evolved into a long-term improvement in the airline's culture. Amara and Malik often discussed the lessons they had learned. They knew that life would continue to present challenges small and large, yet they felt confident that patience, integrity, and calm action could guide them through. They had seen the results firsthand, not just in the resolution of the incident, but in the growth and learning it had inspired in others. One evening, as they prepared for a trip, Amara looked at Malik and said, "I think we will always remember this experience, not for the accident, but for what it taught us about people, responsibility, and respect." Malik smiled, his eyes reflecting understanding and pride. "Exactly. That is the real value of the experience. It was not about blame or anger, but about learning, growing, and ensuring fairness." Together, they boarded their next flight with confidence. Amara's presence was calm, Malik's focus clear, and their understanding of life's lessons steady. They knew that every small action mattered and that respect, dignity, and integrity were the true measures of character. Carla, serving passengers on that flight, moved with careful attention. She felt pride in her work and a quiet sense of gratitude. The lessons she had learned guided her every move, helping her provide exceptional service. She knew that professionalism and respect were not just rules, but values that shaped real experiences for people. As the plane soared above the clouds, all the lives involved seemed connected by the lessons of that single incident. A spilled drink, once a source of tension and worry, had become a catalyst for growth, reflection, and positive change. The ripple of responsibility, dignity, and patience had touched everyone and left lasting effects that would influence their future choices. Amara gazed out of the window, watching the sun set in a golden glow. Malik held her hand, both of them silent for a moment, appreciating the calm and the lesson of the day. Carla moved through the aisle offering service with care and attention, aware of the importance of every gesture. In the end, the story was not about the accident. It was about how people responded with patience, dignity, fairness, and integrity. It was about how one moment could create lessons for a lifetime, inspiring growth and respect in everyone involved. The flight continued smoothly, but the lesson remained clear. Respect and accountability were powerful, patience was essential, and even small actions could shape the future. Everyone on that plane carried a piece of the experience with them, and the story of growth and learning would live on far beyond that single journey.